Hi everyone, I'm Matteo Collina, and today I'm going to talk to you about luck. Let's see, and I don't know. Hopefully, I'll get you inspired to build something great. So before we start, please take a moment to open Twitter and follow me at Matteo Collina. And I also have a GitHub profile, but we'll talk about that in a second. So let's just jump into it. Uh, these talks come from one of my favorite movies, probably. This sounds more or less like cliche, but Obi-Wan Kenobi says that in my experience, there is no such thing as luck. And I always have, I used to go sailing and I ended up, and while sailing, there is wind that you can use to move your boat. The fact that you can catch your wind, it's up to you. It's up to your skills. You can complain to there is wind or no wind, but the ability to control it and drive the boat where you want it to go, it's you know just you. So yeah, but this movie is not about Star Wars or my childhood. It's it's probably about Node.js. No, it's not about Node.js even. Why it's not about Node? Well, I am part of the Node.js technical steering committee, so which is a group of people that direct Node.js. However, as I said, this talk is not really about Node. It's more about us as developers and how to grow our career. I maintain more or less like 500 modules. Is this a lot or not? I don't know. Probably it's a lot because I also have more or less like 1.4 billion downloads per month. It's a lot of downloads. If I only get 1 millicent for each one of those, I will be very rich. Not getting anything or not much. So anyway, if you like it, I have a GitHub sponsor page. So please help me out. However, I have the best QA team out there. You. In fact, if I botch a release, I can get slapped in less than 5 minutes. Somebody will tweet at me or open an issue or do something that will make me notify of the situation. So, in fact, you probably used Yarn, and I broke Yarn not just once, but I broke it twice. Ouch. I not long ago, I was recently awarded the leading by example awarded by the OpenJS Foundation as with the leading by example award, and for my contribution to Node.js and Fastify. I have been sponsored to work on open source as part of my career. So a lot of my open source contributions are sponsored by the companies that have hired me. So yeah, if you would like to sponsor me, please do. Okay, I really I always accept sponsorship, as you can imagine. You can actually do it on the GitHub sponsor page. So something that might not sound surprising to you is that most open source developers out there in the world are actually contributing to us as part of their day job. Really? Yeah, most of them are just developers that maintain software for their open source software for the organizations that are out there. And a lot of people. I've been one of those people. Hey, happy days. And however, a lot of people have been told me this sentence: "How lucky you are that you are paid to write open source software." And yeah, I am not really happy about this sentence, and this is the sentence that actually inspired this talk all those years back. And that's my face when they say it. One of my favorite paintings too, and I'm just like screaming hard, lucky. Really lucky? There's no such thing as luck. Yeah, well, to be honest, I had a little bit of luck. Okay, When I was very young, my dad put me in front of a Commodore 64, and I never stopped using computers. So yeah, I have been starting developing software since I was a kid. That is luck, I'm privileged, I know. Back in 2009, I ended up finishing my master's degrees in computer engineering at the University of Bologna. And after that, I found a job that as a specialized factory worker. I was still writing software, but that was what was written in my contract. I was a specialized factory worker. Ouch. Few years in the future, I ended up in 2021. I was chief software architect at Nearform, which is a phenomenal professional services company, and I've been very lucky. And over there, stayed there for 8 years, did all the things. So I'm very, very happy about my tenure. And in 2022, I left Nearform for doing something new. I'm not that ready to share it with you, but it's going to be great. So stay tuned for on my social channel for more news. So going back on the fact that there was no such thing as luck. Some people ask me often if I regret open sourcing some code. Well, the first one is this library that I open sourced in 2007, LLIP. It's a parser, a tool to write in parsers. And then I wrote a CoffeeScript library for internationalization. And then a control flow library for Node.js, similar to async. Yeah, those did not go well. However, in 2013, I ended up writing Level Graph. Level Graph is one of the... it didn't get much traction, but it was actually very useful because thanks to Level Graph, I joined the Level Up community, and which is a community of people building a NoSQL database, key value store database in Node.js. And, thanks to that, I ended up talking at NodeConf 2013. And I was on stage over there. And yay! Wow. This was one of my, my early self. So I had a lot of hair still there, still at the time. So let's recap how to be paid to work on open source. First of all, contribute significantly to an open source project. If you contribute to Node.js, Fastify, React, you can mention all of them. You can probably find a job very quickly thanks to your contributions. It's I actually know that there are companies that cannot find enough Node core contributor to hire. So if you want to come and start working in Node.js, I can probably recommend you to a few people after some months of contributions to show your skills in developing Node. Then you could write some successful piece of open source and get some sponsors. So this is still your open source, it's not others' open source. You create something, and this is hard. It's hard because you need to get some traction, okay? And then the latest one, which is write a successful piece of open source, then make a business out of it. This is a startup, right? It's super hard. But I just want to create some open source. So what? It's I didn't want to think a little bit about all these things about money and how to fund my work and so on and so forth. How can this even possible? Well, reality is that none of that will matter. The thing that matters, or at least that matter to me the most, is that thinking that I'm not good enough. Imposter syndrome. You can do anything you want if you believe in it. And you unfortunately, if you don't believe in it, you will never go anywhere. You never get anywhere. It's one of the worst possible things that you have, and I'm culprit of this. Okay, so in fact, you us that think a lot about imposter syndrome think that they just know a little dot, and other people out there know a lot more than we do. Reality is that's not necessarily correct, and in fact, we know a lot of stuff, and other people know different things, and that's okay. And more importantly, You wanted to create some open source, right? But you can always produce value in open source. Why? Well, because you could create docs and you could create fixed tests, implement automation, improve things. Yeah, you can do everything you want. Also, that maintenance is the curse of successful open source project. A successful open source project requires a huge amount of maintenance. Huge. It's huge. It's impressive how much work it's needed to keep a successful open source project alive. It's very hard. So please keep it in mind. You can always respond to issues, create more stuff, create more examples. This always work. One of my most famous open source software that I didn't wrote it, but I rewrote it and inherited it. It's MQTT.js. MQTT.js is the library for a popular product called MQTT. It's being used by possibly all possible top cloud providers of there as part of their SDKs for their Internet of Things offering. It's great, MQTT. And you can install just a required MQTT. It's great. Just try it out. It's a nice library. And this product was very big. However, I made some mistakes. Okay, and whenever you're building an open source project, if a software project, if it has too many internals, moving parts like timers and complex interfaces, and they say spaghetti code. When you do spaghetti code, it's actually very hard to maintain it and move forward. That's kind of what happened there. I almost give up in maintaining that module. Also because there was no, all those big tech company were creating a lot of value from it, and I was receiving none. So, in fact, I even created one more Frankenstein, Mosca. Mosca as a Frankenstein of a project. Okay, it's a MQTT broker that that became very quickly impossible to maintain. So I learned my lesson on how to structure code and maintain it long term with thanks to those projects. In all of this, in fact, I've learned that people matter, and it's actually very great that people matter a lot. Because if you're alone, there's only so much thing that you can do. But if there are more people, you can actually fix a lot of things more quickly. In fact, as I mentioned before, I joined the Level Up community. Level Up has invented, Rod Vag from Level Up invented these principles, open source software. And basically where individuals making significant and valuable contributions are given commit access to the project to contribute as they see fit. This project is more like an open wiki than a standard guarded open source project. Here it is, okay? It's nice. And in fact, this served as the basis of the contribution rules for Node.js itself. In fact, everybody after a few 4, 5, 6, 10, depends, PRs to Node.js, they would get the commit bit and just ask to get the commit bit and to another fellow contributor, and you would likely get it. So yeah, come on, you can just become an open source contributor now. Then let's, but maybe it's not for everybody to be open source maintainers. Okay. In fact, most of you are open source consumers, use open source every day. So let's talk a little bit about how to be a good open source citizen and, how to not burn out your maintainers. So first of all, just to be clear, help your maintainers. Okay. Help the authors, please. Okay. They need more help than what you can imagine. And in fact, you need to, if your company is using a lot of open source is one, and you need to contribute back. You have the responsibility to contribute back. Your company has. And just do something. More importantly, though, do never expect a bug fix. It's not a responsibility to fix all bugs in a timely manner. It's not. Just let this to sink in. you cannot pretend. If you're not paying somebody, you cannot pretend a fix in a given time frame. So you should account this in how you develop software and find a way to either engage the maintainers of critical libraries or create support contracts, or there's a lot of ways to do this, but think a little bit about the problem. And then we came to the worst part of being an open source maintainer. You, as maintainers, we receive all the time these kind of reporting issues, like I stopped using this library because you didn't fix this bug, and these kind of things really like destroy our morale. In fact, it's just a plane of sorrow in which we can, we don't know how to get out of. So first of all, let's recap the rules to be good open source citizens. So first of all, be kind. Open an issue. Okay, always include a minimum viable reproduction when you open that issue. Please, all the time. Okay, create a minimum viable reproduction. Create a way to reproduce the problem, please. Otherwise, it's useless. Thank you. I have a can template for that sentence, and I always include that can template on most of the issues that I'm replying to. So please include a minimum viable reproduction. Then you can submit a pull request, because nobody will fix your bug. It's your bug, not my bug. Okay, so it's your bug. So go ahead and submit a pull request. In order to do so, you probably need to get familiar with Git. So you need to go a little bit of guides, study just to all of that. One of the most important tools as an open source maintainer is learning how to do Git rebase. A lot of people don't do Git rebase in their day job, so please always learn how to do Git rebase. It's a very important feature. And after you have written your code, always write unit tests. Okay. Again, I have another can template, and I'm always asking people all the time for tests. I don't know why people don't write tests. It's impossible to maintain stuff if you don't write unit tests. So then you wait for reviewers, and the reviewers will hopefully be gentle, okay, and reply and check each one of your changes and see what they think. And you spent a lot of work preparing your PR, adding the tests, adding everything, and then you will be proven wrong. Okay, I've been proven wrong so many different times. It's happens everywhere. So what do we do? Well, you do all those nice things. You just keep iterating on the code, and then you need to convince others to see things your way. After you open a PR, they're giving you your feedback. Then you follow up and offer you follow up and fix your PR. Finally, it lands. It landed. It's great. And just to recap, the story of all of this is that you are the last maintainer. If you're using open source, you are the last maintainer for it. And in fact, your company is built on top of open source. So be careful. Give back and give back again. Okay, it's very important to give back here. So keep one of the nicest bits here is that we receive a lot of emails on my communications. I received a past upon moment where I received a lot of those. Like, if you do not tell me, I would lose my job, or I could not feed my kid will starve and die. All those things. Anyway, like, don't write those emails. But all of these leads to one of the biggest problem in the open source communities of maintainers is that burnout. In fact, a lot of people burn out in open source. And it's, you just, what is this? Well, it's when you want to get little tiny, and shut down the world. So you stop social media, stop everything. When this happens, every new bug in the open source, in your open source project is pure sorrow. And in fact, coding is not fun anymore. And in fact, when something that you were very proud of, now you leave it unattended and you feel very ashamed about it. So get out of, don't let your maintainer burn out. Okay. So all of these, you might ask why we want to do it, and why I think doing open source software is one of the greatest things of my life. First of all, thanks to open source, I was able to meet the most awesome people. Thank you, folks. You are great. And the people that I've met in the journey I've changed my life 10 times. It's phenomenal. Like, my life will not be the same if I never started to do open source. And a few people even told this to me. Your talk changed my life. Thank you. Some other friends were mentioned about I changed the things for them. And by the way, I've learned from my mistakes in open source and the fact that I actually botched a few libraries at the beginning of my career. One of the libraries you can use and experience today if you're using Node.js is called Pinot. Pinot is a logger library for Node.js. It has 60 million downloads per month. And it's a great library if you're doing any logging and you do Node.js, you want to use Pinot. Or also you want to use Fastify. What is Fastify? Fastify is the fastest web framework for Node.js, and it's growing, and it's actually great. So they both have very active communities. So I've learned my lesson, and both of those are community first projects. So the journey so far has been amazing. So why don't you join? It's just up there. Come and collaborate and start working with all of us in the global open source community. As part of my journey, I've built technology that are on your laptop, and from a tiny city called Forlì here in Italy. So I never moved. So thank you. Bye bye. Oh, and by the way, don't forget to subscribe to my newsletter, Nodeland on Dev. Bye bye again.